Hello and welcome to Bloomberg Women Mean Business. Today I have a very special guest. This is Ms. Shellye Archambeau. She's the CEO of MetricStream, a company that it says that it simplifies governance, risk and compliance for modern and digital enterprises. In fact, we understand that their technology enables organizations to really strengthen risk management and also look into regulatory compliance and governance as well as the quality management while driving business performance. It's a very interesting proposition that we're looking at. Ms. Archambeau, it's wonderful to have you here on the show. Let me first ask you about what your observations are in terms of what you're seeing with the digital explosion in India and how you think your company is really going to be working with what is happening here.
First of all, I just want to say thank you for having me on the show, Fatima. I'm very excited to be here and talk about my favorite topic, which is governance, risk, and compliance. When we look at the overall market, we're seeing incredible focus and interest in companies actually improving their overall management of risk, their overall effective governance and compliance. As a matter of fact, not only are we working with some of the largest companies in the world in this particular area, but even just a couple of weeks ago, Prime Minister Modi was actually talking about the importance of improved governance and transparency with his secretary. So it's an issue that both companies are facing in the private as well as the public sector. And we're working with companies in a vast array of industries, from financial services to healthcare, pharmaceutical, retail, etc. One of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the generic space in the world, Aurobindo Pharma, right here in India, is one of our larger customers. We're helping them improve their overall governance, risk, and compliance, focused on the overall pharmaceutical arena and complying with the rules, regulations, and improving their overall quality of their products.
Okay, so I just want to press you a little bit more to get an overall perspective, because there's a large scale of companies and range of companies that you work with, and you've mentioned some of them. But give me a sense as to how risk management really works, say for a smaller company and perhaps say for one that is much more established and has global interests as well.
Absolutely. If you think about it, what we're doing in the governance, risk, compliance space is helping companies both preserve their corporate integrity, protect their brands and reputations, and perform exceptionally by having the right risk intelligence, regulatory intelligence information to make business decisions. So if you think about it, in the financial services space, for instance, companies need to understand what their risks are. Risks from an operational standpoint, from a third-party standpoint, their financial risk, the risk that exists with their overall regulatory compliance arena. They need to look at their overall capital risk exposure. We help companies pull up all the different data and information throughout their enterprise so they can understand what their risks really are and therefore make the right business decisions to either take advantage of risk, because risk means opportunity, or to mitigate risk so they can operate more efficiently. So that's on the financial services side. If you look at big retailers, for instance, retailers are very focused, obviously, on their brand, and they need to make sure that their suppliers, for instance, are following all the right rules and regulatory requirements, that they know when they have supplier risks and are able to manage it and mitigate it. We help them with that type of activity and support.
Can I just ask you what some of your observations are within doing business in India? I want to get a sense from you, what are some of those observations you've seen, whether it's the larger brands that you've talked about, or whether it is, say, companies that are really sort of perhaps ahead in the curve in terms of what they've done as entrepreneurs, but perhaps they just need a little bit more help when it comes to GRCs, to really manage their risk and compliance and so on and so forth. I want to get a sense from you, because you've had a very global sort of background in terms of what you've done. What do you see happening in India on a regular basis? Are there certain patterns you think that are common over here?
Yes, what we're actually seeing in India is the competitive nature and aspirations of Indian companies, frankly of all sizes, is to indeed operate and execute on a global stage. And to do that, because of the speed of business, it's really important that they get the information they need at their fingertips to make the best decisions. So we see more and more interest and focus looking at risk management, not just from an internal standpoint, but also looking at the overall economic, geopolitical, right? All the different risks that actually affect your business and how you operate. As I said, because from the top down, at the prime minister level, all the way down through the private sector, the focus on good governance, of operating your company in a good, effective way and making the right business decisions and having the data at your fingertips to do that is becoming more and more important. So we're seeing a lot of interest indeed being generated in this marketplace, as well as around the world.
Okay, and just a little bit more about one of the big newsy sort of items that I just saw a little while ago, which is, of course, your partnership with Tech Mahindra. Just give me a sense as to how that really works and what you really think of tying up with a company like that.
We're very excited about our partnership with Tech Mahindra. This has been one that we have indeed been working on as they look at their own opportunity at Tech Mahindra. They see governance, risk, and compliance as a truly global and growing marketplace. So by partnering together, we will bring the best of MetricStream with our GRC experience, the best of Tech Mahindra with their global program management, services, right, broad global experience together to be able to help companies both implement our solutions as quickly as possible and get value as soon as possible. So by working together, we take the best of both companies and bring them to the overall marketplace. So we will work together in our go-to-market as well as helping companies implement faster, more efficiently, so they can get value from the software.
We're taking a short break on Bloomberg Women Mean Business. Welcome back to Bloomberg Women Mean Business. I just want to now talk to you about your very interesting career. You have, of course, held very senior positions across platforms, across very big brand names. You've worked, your background at IBM, of course, is famous. You hold very interesting board positions across great, very well-known companies as well. What is it that made you make this transition to MetricStream?
Oh, you know, it's interesting. I feel like my entire career's experience has added up to position me perfectly for what we've been doing at MetricStream. So you're right. I've spent the vast majority of my career in technology, both large companies like IBM, et cetera, but as well as growing companies, and have held general manager, officer level jobs, et cetera. What I find is that the experience that I gained at both building divisions at IBM, helping medium-sized companies indeed grow and scale, positioned me at MetricStream to be able to work with and build an incredible team to go after, frankly, a brand new industry. What's most exciting about what we've done at MetricStream is 10 years ago, GRC wasn't even a known marketplace. When we had the vision to help companies improve their overall business performance by managing risk and overall compliance, we were really forging a whole new arena. And to see the market open up and really embrace all of the initiatives that MetricStream has been driving has just been very, very exciting. To build a great global team, both in the US as well as here in India, has just been extremely rewarding.
Can I just ask you that when you went from a massive organization such as an IBM, and you just mentioned it you just sort of touched upon that, what are some of the changes you see when you go from such a large organization to building from a smaller team? And of course, you going global, but it's definitely a paradigm shift that takes place.
Absolutely. It's really interesting in terms of how different. For instance, at IBM, even though I was running multi-billion-dollar divisions, I never knew what my cash balance was at IBM. Whereas when you're building a company, you know what your cash balance is every single day. When you're at a big company like IBM, when you pick up the phone and call someone, they actually answer. When you're coming from a brand new company that doesn't have the brand, you have to work a lot harder to actually get people's attention and their overall focus to be able to talk about what you're doing. So it's really a very different dynamic. But at the same time, the exciting parts about being part of a growing and smaller company initially was that we were able to truly work very closely with our customers, understand what was going on in the market, and quickly and rapidly adapt, take on new projects, really innovate. It's just been great. At IBM, what would take potentially quarters or years to get done, we could do in a matter of weeks, or a month at MetricStream, because we had the focus and we were so close to the overall customer in the marketplace.
You know, it's interesting for me to really see the background, your journey academically also in terms of where you are right now. Give me a sense as to what you were doing at Wharton and how you sort of ended up going towards the career path that you've chosen.
It's interesting. So at Wharton, I decided early that I actually wanted to run a business. So that's why I went to Wharton, to get the solid business background and understanding. And as I built my career, I was building towards the overall general manager and frankly, CEO position. I picked technology as the industry to get engaged in because it was an industry that was growing. And whenever there's growth and there's innovation, there's going to be opportunity. So that's why I picked the industry. And when you look at the different career moves I made at IBM, I learned a great deal about management, about scale, about how you rally and pull together global teams and go after broad and big opportunities. Working at companies like a Loud Cloud and a North Point, and even a Blockbuster.com in the early days, you learn how to take concepts and turn them into real, live products and or services for the marketplace. You learn how to adapt, you learn how to innovate. So the combination of those skills all have come together in what we're doing at MetricStream in terms of taking an overall vision, a vision to help companies better perform by indeed managing their governance, risk, and compliance, building a team to help create the apps and the services and the content that companies need to be able to actually do that, and then be able to, frankly, position, market, and communicate how you can help companies get that done, and then build a broad community. You know, it's interesting. One of the things that MetricStream has done, unlike a lot of other software companies, if you will, is we've actually created and fostered a community around governance, risk, and compliance. So globally, practitioners and thought leaders, et cetera, come together on a regular basis and talk about trends and directions, which then enables us to build the right apps and the right content for the marketplace.
I want to ask from you, you know, has it changed? Is there a different perception of compliance and risk in this part of the world, let's say there is perhaps in the North American markets or heavily regulated markets? I mean, give me a sense as to what you really observe when you compare these different economies as well.
Yes. You're right. There is a different view. So if you look at North America is heavily regulated with heavy enforcement. And so as a result, companies pay a lot of attention to the discipline around compliance and the discipline around managing risk, because the flip side of being non-compliant and not managing your risks are significant from a financial impact, major fines. I mean, you can open up the paper at any point and read about fines in the tens of millions, hundreds of millions for companies not acting correctly and or not following due process. When you leave the North America, for instance, and you come to other marketplaces, the level of regulatory requirements differ. And if you go to the UK, it's also pretty high in financial services. But if you come to India, for instance, there absolutely are regulatory requirements and compliance needs, but not nearly to the same level. So when you look, therefore, at what the investments companies make, they will be different because the markets will have different dynamics. But ultimately, the world is global. So companies, even companies based in India, even though the regulatory requirements in India may be lower than they are in North America, companies that want to sell their products, their solutions, their drugs, their financial services, whatever, insurance, whatever it might be, actually still have to comply with North America regulations. If you want to sell in the UK, you have to comply with what's going on in the UK. So even though countries may have differing requirements, companies that want to operate on a global stage, which is what most companies aspire to, indeed still have to manage those overall requirements. So it really is a global need.
Ms. Archambeau, I'm going to just ask you to hold on to that. It's time for us to take a short break. We're coming back in just a few moments. You're watching Bloomberg Women Mean Business on Bloomberg TV India. You know, we've been talking a lot about ease of doing business in India. This whole idea of ease of doing business and how our perhaps, I wouldn't even say if it's our legal structure or whatever it is, taxation. There's repeated conversations that we've been having in the business media about India being an attractive destination. What are you perceiving on these fronts? Because you've, of course, been observing this market for a while now. Do you feel that these are the correct conversations that are coming up? Is India becoming an easier place to do business with? You work in something such as risk and compliance and governance. These are also not very simple issues to implement as well. However, we do have that frame for our businesses. But give me a sense as to what you're seeing over here as a market for ease of doing business.
You know, it's interesting. You're right. We've actually been in the India market now for, oh goodness, we've probably been in the business market for about a dozen years or so. And we've seen changes. It's obvious that India wants to be competitive on a global basis in terms of attracting companies and overall investment. So when you say, is it easy? I don't know that it's easy, but I don't know that it's easy anywhere. But I think that India has indeed made a very strong focus on trying to create an environment that will attract investment, which MetricStream has made, and will attract businesses to indeed build, grow, and flourish here. So yes, we have indeed not only figured out, but we've been able to indeed build an amazing innovation center here in India, specifically in Bangalore, that's worked extremely well for us. And we have a good relationship with the overall government, regulatory bodies, as well as the business and I should say the business environment in general. So we see it as very positive, and we plan to continue to build and invest in India.
I've been looking at some of the articles that you've been associated with and also that you've also contributed to. One of them, of course, was mentioned was, of course, through this on what keeps women out of tech. We started rolling before I could actually start looking at that. But it's interesting. I was having this very conversation with some of the very senior women I know in technology in India as well. And they talked about certain behaviors that have kept women out of the tech industry. There are more of them now, but what according to you is keeping women out of tech, or is that scenario improving in the States perhaps?
I'm actually very bullish. I see that we are getting a bigger pipeline, and I'll talk about what we're seeing especially here in India, but we're seeing a bigger pipeline of women coming into technology, which I think is phenomenal. And what I think we need to do is not so much focus on what keeps them out, but what can we do to actually encourage and to enable. So for instance, at MetricStream, we actually launched not too long ago, but an overall focus around diversity and truly building women leaders and looking at what are the skills that need to be reinforced, what are the capabilities, what are the mentorship, et cetera, that needs to be out there. Because frankly, we don't have enough role models in senior technology roles, and we need more. So in order to have more, we have to create more, and it starts at home. So as we look at women in technology, if you think about the basic needs of leadership in a global marketplace, and technology is global. As soon as you put up a website, you are global. It's important that you are actually collaborative, that you have the ability to multitask and work with a lot of different people, that you indeed bring, of course, the skills, capabilities, etc., but there's a lot of other attributes that actually make good leaders. And the good news to me is women happen to be, in my opinion, stronger when it comes to collaboration, stronger when it comes to multitasking. We wear so many hats, whether it's the wife, the mother, the daughter, the employee, the leader, etc., that we learn early how to balance and to juggle, and that shows in terms of in the overall work environment. I think women are also more attuned to how people are feeling. The empathy factor, which I think helps them be better managers because they can be attuned to how to actually help people when they're struggling, how to encourage and motivate, all of that, which when you look at a global environment in which teams are spread out across the world, communications, collaboration, building teams, etc., are just critical for overall success. So I think there's a lot of what I'll call inherent capabilities and skills that women have that actually make them very strong leaders.
Okay, and so you think that there is a certain kind of leadership that can evolve around gender as well, I take it, which is a very interesting thought. I need to also get a sense from you as to how dangerous you think the fact that many women are still missing from boards in significant roles is for a business, because we know the benefits of diversity, we know the dangers of tokenism. We've had a big issue with that over here in India. Give me a sense as to what you think that really means.
When I look at the top ranks, whether it's of companies or boards of directors, et cetera, you're right. It can be disheartening when you look at the percentage of those roles that are actually held by women. And we need to do more. I think diversity is important because it brings different thoughts, different perspectives, different approaches to overall decision making. And whenever you have different opinions and views, you always end up with a stronger result at the end. And there's been so many studies that have shown that by bringing diversity to the table at leadership levels, at board levels, etc., you end up with better performance. So the overall business stats are clear. So why isn't it happening? I think we need to continue to put more focus. We need to continue to talk about it. And frankly, we need to continue to step forward, raise our hands, and indeed ensure that this is part of the overall dialogue. I do see more and more women being placed on boards, but it's a slow process. And because you see, I'll call it slow turnaround. You know, boards aren't hiring people every quarter, right? Or even every year at times. So it takes time to indeed make that overall shift. But we need to make sure that the dialogue is continuing, that people truly understand the value, and that we're also building the pipeline of women with the skills, experience, and capability to take on those roles.
Okay, we've been talking a lot on Bloomberg about 2016 that started off on a very rough footing as a year, and how businesses are probably going to really have to sort of adapt to that particular scenario. I would like for you to please tell me what you think are some of the common biggest risks you see to Indian businesses themselves, and also what you think 2016 is really going to be looking like when it comes to a risk perspective. Just a few thoughts really from you on that.
Yes, I actually see 2016 from an overall risk perspective is we're going to see more risk, not less, which is why it's really important to get your arms around it. And when you say, well, what kind of risk? We've already started to see the overall financial markets being a little choppy, right? So you have that type of risk. We also have the risk from just a geopolitical standpoint. There's a lot of parts of the world right now where there's unrest going on, and that has domino effects as it relates to where people invest, how they operate, etc. So we have to be able to manage that. And then you've got just the fact that companies and supply chains tend to be very dispersed and very global. So managing the risk around suppliers, understanding where you have issues and don't, right? Which suppliers are most important to you, and having the ability to have backup, right, plans, etc., are also very important. Business continuity. We're seeing with global warming more extremes with regards to weather, from tornadoes to earthquakes, tsunamis, etc. So the ability to have a true and robust business continuity plan and manage that risk is also important. So frankly, as I sit here, I think it's more important than ever for companies to truly put in place enterprise risk programs to truly understand their risk and ensure that they're making the right investments, that they're putting the right resources over the right areas of their business so that they can properly navigate through all these different risks that they're going to be facing in 2016 and frankly beyond.
All right, Ms. Archambeau, I just want to thank you for your time. It's been wonderful talking to you right here on Bloomberg Women Mean Business, and it's been wonderful to really have you here with us from the Silicon Valley. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much. I definitely enjoyed our time together.